Now, when it comes to making books, I would say there are 3 tools that you should have just to make the entire process easier. But if you can only get one out of the 3, the most important tool for making books is actually this funny little thing. So this little knob with a sharp point at the end is called an awl, AWL. And it is actually for perforating the sheets in whatever your other cover material is going to be, to actually make the holes to sew your book together, because books aren't held. There are some books that are held together by glue. That is not the book that we are making today. That is not the book I'm teaching you to make today. So you are going to need, at the very least, an awl. The other 2 tools that I think would be very important to have alongside this awl are actually a hammer and then a bone folder. I love this bone folder. You can tell I've used it a lot because she is certainly dipping in, we got it almost like a surfboard. But it's important to have it because we want those nice clean edges, because it's important to have something to fold your paper over, make a nice clean line. So I would say all 3 of these are extremely important to making books, but if you can only deal with one, the awl is very important. You can use a straight edge, of any kind. You have scissors at home or a knife. I'm not saying you should use knives to create art, but if that's all you have, then that is all you have. Ask your housemates before you go doling up all of their knives to cut up paper. So let's get to actually folding our pages, and then we'll talk a little bit about how a usual book is created, because there's a certain number of pages per folding process. We'll get to it. We'll get to it. Welcome to In Media Res bookmaking. So I started this process and realized, I really ought to film this, because I had created a very large book earlier this year that was done with a completely different process than what I normally do. So I wanted to go ahead and walk you through the process of creating a usual book, because I've probably made around 20 to 30 books at this point. So this is the general gist of it. At first you see those 2 book covers right there with the black interior and the red exterior, the paper that I'm going to be using on the side. And I went ahead and did some math to see, how big and how much paper I had versus how big my covers were. And then I hate to tell all of you artists out there, but we do use so much math when we're creating things. So I did a fair amount of figuring out of how I wanted to, how large I wanted my papers to be, in essence. So after I measured those, cut those out from the big page, big paper holder that I had them in, I then went through the process of using my bone folder to smooth them all out, lay them on in themselves, and fold them. Hi. So in a second, we're going to talk about the importance of 4 when creating books, because I was initially going to do something different. But now that I realize I am just 1 paper shy of 4, we're going to do a teeny tiny detour, and we're going to go ahead and just cannibalize a different pad of paper. And there will just be 1 piece of paper that's different from everything else, and I'm just going to get over it emotionally. So, pause. All right, we have all of that finished. So now we're going to get a little bit into terms of art. And a term of art is not just a play on words because we are making art right now. A term of art is a word that describes a specialized process or action or thing in a specific area of what you're doing. So because we're dealing with bookmaking right now, we're going to talk about some terms of art for the actual parts of the book that we are creating. So each piece of paper that we have now folded in on itself, this is called a folio. And I am absolutely reading this off of Google next to me just to make sure that I am saying everything correctly. Folio being from the Latin word folio or folium, and that word means leaf. So if you've ever heard of, loose leaf paper, that's kind of where the term comes from. It's very, very old. And so we take 4 folio at a time and then nest them within one another to create what's called a signature. So with all of the papers that we've already cut out and folded, I've put them in sets of 4 for us to then nest them within one another. And then that's going to give us 7 signatures to work with and create the actual body of our book. So I'm going to go ahead and fold my folios nicely, nest them within one another, and then we will go to the next part of our process, because after we have folded everything and nested everything, we're actually going to be looking at construction of the book itself, which I'm kind of cheating a little bit this time because I already have some really nice front and back pages, in essence, covers for this book. I, again, cannibalized an old drawing book that had paper that I did not like in it, and I knew I wanted to keep that book around, so this seemed like, the perfect moment to do so. Where's that paper that has the one different folio in it? This one. This is going to be the center of the book because it has one page. One of these things is literally not like the others. So we're going to put it smack down in the middle of our book. Now this paper is in itself really, really important to me because one, this watercolor Strathmore paper that I'm using, I'm pretty sure came from my grandma. One of those things that had just been floating around for a very long time waiting to be used. But the other reason that this paper is really, really important, in my view, to use for this project is because we talk a lot about weights when it comes to paper, and it has, a lot to do with the science of how paper is differentiated into uses. So the paper for your printer, for example, is extremely lightweight. It's like, I think probably 80 pounds, if not like 70 pounds. Meaning that, however many pieces of paper per 1,000 are put together and then weighed, that's how much the weight is. I'm not explaining this correctly. You can do a deep dive Google on the weight of paper if your little beautiful heart desires. I ain't going into it right now. But in essence, this paper, the Strathmore watercolor paper that I'm using, is a weight of 130. So it's really going to be a lot more durable for all of the materials that I'm going to be wanting to put on it. It's going to be a lot more long lasting. It obviously doesn't crease as easily. It doesn't rip as easily. You can put all sorts of, it just me being able to put whatever I want on a paper, on a page, is important to me. And sometimes the paper that I'm using makes that a difficult process. Because essentially I'm creating this book because I had a different plan for the sketchbook that I'm doing Mab's Drawloween Challenge, or Drawloween Club this year in. And I'm having fun, but I absolutely do not want to continue using the same paper post October. I do not want to continue on with that process. So that is one of the main reasons why I'm making this book right now, or at least preparing to make it right now. I don't know if I'll get a ton of it done today because I still have to do today's challenge, which is, since today's the 18th of October, it's Raven. So I think I'm going to do a 3-headed raven. But now, in essence, this is nice because I've cheated. I don't have to create a special front and back cover for this book, because usually I would be working with, this is chipboard. Thick, thin, this is actually on the thinner side, which is why I like this so much. So normally when I would be making a book, I would be working with raw chipboard, and then I would have paper for the inner cover, and then something for the outer cover. You can use fabric that has been, I mean, you can just use fabric for fun. Sometimes you can treat the fabric as well to give it a little bit more longevity. Or you can use really thick cardstock or even vinyl. I've really enjoyed, is my other book out? No. I have another book where I've covered it in this really nice vinyl sticker that, you know, is supposed to be for like a Cricut machine or whatever, but I thought it was pretty. And so I just used it for other stuff. But because I have already skipped that process and already have this really, really nice, you can see a little bit of the light reflecting off of it. Really nice front and back cover already done. My next part of this process is going to be figuring out how many sections of sewing that I want to plan for and do to actually bind the physical book together. So if I've got 7, I like to have numbers work with one another, so I might actually do 7 bindings. So 1 in the absolute middle, 3 on one side, 3 on the other side. So the next part of the process is where the awl, especially the awl, very much comes in handy. And I'm looking for my hammer. There it is. There it is. Yeah. So next I will be planning out how I'd like to measure to put in my 7 holes for both the paper and the cover, you know, front and back cover. And the measurements is going to be the same in essence, but they're going to be, you know, differently spaced from the edges. So that's, you know, its own little bit of math. But after that process is done, I will go in, you know, go in with the awl and the hammer. The hammer is very helpful for this part of the process, because if you're just going in all first, just into, you know, I think this is a really nice thick bit of book leather as well that's on top of the chipboard. You know, you're gonna be sitting there trying to drill in there forever. So having a hammer with an awl is very, very helpful. You can see the back of this has long since started to chip away because of how much I have used it. So let me do a little bit of math, figure out how I'm going to space these things, and then we will start to drill some holes. That's what she said. All right, one-handed. So we are working with a 7.5 inch folio. Usually I really like to have things being symmetrical. So for this, I decided to go in 1/2 inch on one side, 1/2 inch on the other side, and then I went in inch by inch until I found the middle. So 1/2 inch to 1/2 inch. Words are hard. I'm also doing like 3 things at once, 4 if you count breathing. 2.5, 5. So we have 1, 2, 3. I like that. 1, 2, 3. I like that. And so for the very middle, we went, you know, 1 more for that would be 3.5. 1 more for that would be 4. So we actually split the difference and went 3.75%. And now I could have done this really professionally and like measured out everything for my actual cover and done division and whatever, but for this I decided to just slap this guy down. I want him to still be within the edge of the cover, but not, you know, overhanging and not too far inwards. And so because I know that my covers are 8 inches and my folios are 7.5, I just went in 1/4 inch on either side. After doing that, I lined up what I thought looked relatively straight. As a queer myself, doesn't have to be perfect. And then I marked those right along the interior. And the nice thing about working just with one cover is that when you've got your holes in one cover, you can just put it on top of the other one and slap it on down, slap it on through. So that is something I will work on in a little bit because my back is starting to hurt and I don't want to sit here for much longer. But then after you have got your folio all set with your lines, I'm actually going to grab a couple of clamps that I have so I can clamp all of these papers together. And when that is done, I'm actually going to go with my pencil and then just go right down my 7 lines so I can just equally press everything. But then I'll probably let everything sit overnight clamped so that it'll be everything is thin and nested, but you can see there's still a relative amount of daylight coming through all of those nested folios. So it could use a little bit of extra time just to fully press within on itself before I start going in with my awl to create holes in everything and then sewing everything up together. Whatever, words are hard. So that is what I'm going to work on right now, is literally just getting my clamps, putting it all together, and then we'll probably talk tomorrow. So, see you guys soon. Hello, it's tomorrow. So we have let those guys sit overnight, and they were much more easier to deal with today as opposed to if I had just put holes in them yesterday. So this is sort of the part where you can see the gentle monotony of what bookmaking is. And I quite like the process of just doing something over and over again. There's a lot of meditation in it for me. I find a lot of peace and a lot of comfort in it. All right, so now we have our holes drilled into our covers. And the fun part is you can actually put, your loose leaves in the covers and see, oh yeah, that's going to be real nice. I like the heft, I like the weight, I like how it fits in my hands. So now, the next part of our process, we're actually going to be dealing with the thread. There's so much to say about what kind of thread you can use, how heavy you can use it. I think that what matters is if you want to have a book last for a long time, you're going to look for something that's got a little bit of strength to it. So I believe this is some type of a cotton. In essence, this is an extra piece of something that has just been in my sewing box for probably decades, because a lot of my sewing stuff has come from my grandma. But the important part of dealing with any kind of thread is using wax. This is, I believe, beeswax. And I'm actually going to be taking this little puck of beeswax and just, over however much thread I'm going to need, and we're going to be waxing the thread. And to figure out how long you want your piece of thread, it's a really, really exact science of taking it. And then I like to go, because we're going in and out of each, we're sewing this book together, so there's going to be a lot of overlap, it almost looks like a braid for sure. But I like to go, we got 1, 2, each cover's worth 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So go a little bit longer than each actual piece that you have. Go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That should be good. I'm probably going to do an extra 3 just in case. 10, 11, 12. All right, that should be good. Oh, my kingdom for a pair of scissors. All right, so next I'm going to cut this up. A really professional tool bag. And so let us go to the next part. As funny as it is, this is one of my favorite parts of the process because I love the smell of the wax, of the beeswax. It's a little bit sweet, it's a little bit earthy. Now, you may be asking yourself, Alana, did you not learn a damn thing from the other really big book that you made earlier this year? By having a really long yarn and getting it tangled whenever you are doing shit? And the answer is no. Maybe I haven't learned anything. But that doesn't matter. We're going to move forward. So if you have never, ever, ever done any sewing in your life, welcome. It's a beautiful day to learn a new thing. We're going to first start off by actually threading the needle. And I think that it is extremely helpful to have a tool to help you thread the needle. So this, if it is, I have no idea if that camera is actually going to pick up on this or not. This is a little tiny thin piece of metal that has a wire strung at the end, and that wire essentially makes a hole in itself. So you put this little threader through the hole of your needle itself so that it is able to actually catch the thread that you're using. And it'll pull it through the needle hole for you, which is very, very nice. So I think for this, I'm just going to do, give it a little bit of length between the actual needle itself and the knot, but I am going to give it one tie and give it 2 ties. There we go. We'll see how well that works. So now we've got threaded needle. We've got our book made up of our cover and our 7 signatures. Let's go ahead and move forward. I like to start at the bottom and then move to the top. So we're going to take 6 of the signatures and the top cover and just flip them over as is. And start with the bottom. Making sure we are in position. Yes, we are. Excellent. So we're actually going to start from the inside. And I'm using a curved needle here, which I think is really, really helpful when you're making books because you're going in and out of these really tight crevices. And it's a lot easier to maneuver these little tiny pieces that we're working through if you have a curved needle. So we're going to go in. We're going to start at the very left-hand side. I am shaking my left shoulder because I mix my left and my right up pretty often. Make sure, everything is straight first. Straighter than me, at least. Although I shouldn't say that. I don't think I like anyone other than boys at this point in my life. All right. We've gone through. We've got the needle. Pull the needle through. Our ridiculously long piece of thread. Oh no, maybe this is going to be too long. We'll see. We shall see. Fuck, this is going to be too long. Okay. Please hold. We're going to cut this at the very least by about that much. The thread is already waxed, which is nice, so I do not have to worry about waxing any more thread at this point. But it was a little too long for me to be working with naturally. All right. So we've got that. Let's go ahead and give this a nice triple knot because we do not want it to go through that hole again. But if it does, there's a second action that we can take to ensure that it doesn't, which it looks like we're going to have to do because I am not good at doing triple knots. All right, close enough. Start with part 1. We'll leave a little bit of a tail there. That's an important Mouska tool that we'll use later. Please don't sue me, Disney. I do not have any more than $7 in my bank account. Not even in my bank account, just on me. All right, we got first signature and our bottom cover. We're going to actually go from underneath that bottom cover back through the top. Whoop, there we are. And I'm taking pains to not pull too fast. But the other thing you can do is I'm going to lay my thumb right on this piece of thread on the inside of the signature. Make sure that we're still pretty well lined up to where our holes are so we can make it as taut as possible. T-A-U-G-H-T. Not taunt, T-A shit. Taut, not taunt. Taut, not taunt. I'm not going to spell that for you. I apologize. So we've gone out underneath, gone up through. We're going to curve our hook through that one more time, which is what makes that really pretty little braid moving up our signatures as we continue this action. And then we're going to go back through that initial hole and make sure, that's why I'm looking at it right now, because I'm making sure, I'm trying to make sure that I go through all of the pages again, which is why the curved needle helps a lot. And there we go, right back through. All right, nice and taut. Still lined up relatively well so I don't have too much extra slack. And now that that is threaded, we can actually tie off this extra end, and that will make it completely stay. If I could get my fingers to participate. They're trying. They're trying. Okay. You get the idea. So now I'm just going to redo this action over and over and over again. There we go. I promised myself I could do that, not. All right, part one. So same deal. We're gonna go next one, out, under, through, curl around, go back in. How about we do 3 more holes together, and then I will swap us over to the time lapse. I look forward to a day when I have an actual workbench. Because let me tell you, this is a little bit awkward. But again, not the end of the world. There's the interior. We've gone out. We're going to go through the bottom, making sure that I am on camera. I apologize, my goodness. All right. Interior. We've gone through, went through the bottom again, come up. We're gonna give this a nice little hook around both of those threads. And this is called a Coptic stitch, by the way. And then, oh, hello, little cat. Oh, oops. And then I needed to work quietly for safety concerns. And apologies for not actually getting the needle threading on camera. I can only do so much with the equipment and the angles that I have. But regardless, just go through, do that first line of stitching, and then it's really easy to just start on with a new signature, which we'll chat about now. So now we are done with our first signature. I've threaded it underneath and through, but instead of going through that same hole again, we're going to grab our next signature, make sure all 4 of our pages are plopped inside, grab it by the middle, put her on top, and then go through that hole. Again, remember, perfect isn't the enemy of the good. It's fine if you accidentally go through the hole a little to the side than where you're supposed to. And now we continue threading as we did the first time. Go through the hole. Maybe. Okay. Pull it taut. And now this time we're just looping underneath the bottom knot. And then going back through that hole, back to the middle of the signature. There we go. And now it's bittersweet because this is like one of my favorite parts of the process of bookmaking, but it's also the end process of the bookmaking. So just go one, left to right, right to left, left to right, right to left, sewing your signatures upon one another. And when you get to that very last cover page, you just go back through that last signature once more, doing, curving on the outside, going around the bottom knot, and then going back in through the signature on the inside. Well, after flying dangerously close to the sun with how little thread I had for that last bit, let's take a look and see this beautiful book in all action because we are done. Here we are, all finished. That was a lot of fun. We've got 7 signatures in there, a really nice hard front and back cover, ready to be filled. Today's homework is to go and try and make something that you've never done before, whether it's playing with needles and thread responsibly, whether it's just working in a material that you haven't used in a really long time. Who knows? Who cares? Go have fun. Have a beautiful rest of today and a good weekend because I post on Fridays. And there is a cat that's come to visit me. Hello. Take care, everyone. Beautiful rest of the day. Bye from us both. Huh. Tell them all about it. Tell them all about it. Charlie and I say bye.